Welcome back, everyone. Bug Fables. Difficult to get into, but a great time overall. And that is why I'm making this video to talk about it. I want to spend a little more time detailing the game and telling you what to look out for and why you should play it, compared to in a few weeks' time when I only spend 2 or 3 minutes discussing the game. So you can guess what's coming if you know the videos on the channel. I had this game recommended to me as a Paper Mario type of adventure. Because it's one of my favorite games of all time, I was told I would like Bug Fables. It's like a lighter version of that. Yes, it is. That's true in many ways. The game is clearly visually inspired by it. The battle mechanics are pretty much the same, although I think Bug Fables has a deeper battle system. But really for what matters is it copies the framework of health points, TP, teamwork points, those are your abilities for casting spells, and your badge points. The badge system is really what defines this subgenre of RPG games. Where we should begin with this game is with my first experiences with it. And let's get the bad stuff out of the way, since those were contained within the pretty much the first half of the game. Second half, so much better. And that's where you really do start to enjoy everything that's included in the game. You are dropped in the world of Bulgaria, and this is a world that I really grew to love. It starts out pretty simple, right? You're just a bunch of bugs, and it kind of makes sense. It mimics the real world, how there's an ant colony has a queen, and so, in this kingdom, the ant queen is the ruler. That sort of stuff is thematic, and again, it makes perfect sense, and it never disrupts your immersion or anything. It's a very believable world. Early on, you're going to have a side quest where you're tasked with retrieving lore books and depositing them at a library, and these lore books paint a more interesting depiction of the world. They explain things that I didn't expect. So for example, as you're wandering the world, you're going to see that some of the bugs inhabit cardboard boxes, soda cans that are hollowed out. They might use plastic straws and spoons as bridges here and there. And it's interesting to see what the developers came up with for how the human world and the bug world come together. Anyways, you will begin your adventure in the role of Kabu and V. Kabu, the beetle, V, the bee, and there's going to be one more character that joins you, Leaf, the moth. And together, you three make up this explorer's party. And throughout your adventure, you're going to be continuing to run into rival explorers, mentor explorers, and it's just fun seeing the combinations of bugs, how the insects work together, the fact that there are factions in the world between ants and wasps and bees and so on and so forth. Really cleverly designed. Even though I'm not a bug or an insect guy, I enjoyed it and appreciated it. So where the problems begin are in this first chapter's dungeon. It's a cave and it's very drab. Up until now, the game had showed off its vibrant color palette, bright greens and yellows and other sorts of colors blending in, but then it shoves you in this dungeon and you get stuck there if you happen to be playing on hard mode because of the battles. Alright, so there's a lot that I have to explain here, but this is really what weighed down the experience in the first half of the game. Let's start with hard mode. You have your choice between normal and hard, and you can change at any point. In hard mode, enemies are all tweaked to be slightly stronger, could be in the form of more armor, more damage, or more HP. Basically, battles are more of a slog. They're already fairly long, or they can be, and they just take even longer. The rewards? A little bit more EXP for battle. I can't tell you how much, I never compared the numbers, and I just stubbornly left my game on hard mode because as you defeat chapter bosses, you get badges for free. Now I learned that on normal mode, you could still purchase these badges at a badge shop later. So again, it's up to you. Would you rather amass some money, some currency, and buy the badges on normal mode, or play the game on hard? The problem is, the first half of the game is terribly balanced, and people can immediately attack me and say, oh, you're a casual, oh, you're a scrub, but I'll explain. It's not something that has to do with my skills and abilities necessarily, because the game got really easy for me from chapter 5 onwards. I was able to start breezing through some of the battles. The issue is with the TP costs of your early abilities. So, battles are turn-based, and they take place in these instances, these battle scenes, where typically your team will go first, and then the enemies. You have choices of choosing attacks, abilities, items, identifying the enemies so that you can read their HP and find out some weaknesses about them, etc. There's one really cool battle mechanic, I'll mention it right now, and this is what differentiates the game from Paper Mario the most, is you can give your turn from one character, you can give that turn's move, I should say, to an ally. So if I don't want V to go twice because maybe the enemies are resistant to V's boomerang, and I want to use Kabu because he can flip them with his horn, I can have Kabu go first, then it's V's move, and I can give that move to Kabu. Now, there are some drawbacks to doing that, but the fact that this is even in the game becomes really fun to play around with. You'll have a lot of strategies that are based on shifting moves around and who do you have use items, who do you have doing attacking, defending. Like I said, the game does get really good in the second half. In the first half, the enemies typically have too much HP and your skills cost too much TP. That is where the imbalance comes from. And I've read some reviews about the game, I've read other people's complaints about why it wasn't so fun when they started playing. Nobody else identified it. I truly believe that your abilities, your early abilities, costing so much TP is where the problems begin. Because in order to mitigate your losses and your damage, in order to be able to move through 2 or 3 battles at a time without having to restore HP and TP, or HP I should say, you're going to have to burn through your TP. It goes so quickly. So people online, they advise you to bring a lot of items. Bring TP restoring items. But really what's going to end up happening is you're going to have to run back to an inn or some other place where you could get a heal and then continue advancing in the dungeon. Typically, there are some points where you can heal your characters and you're not far enough away from the action so that the enemies can't respawn. That could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing, because maybe you want to battle more enemies so that you could level up and get a little bit stronger. This was the source of many of my frustrations, these tedious battles that just require way too much TP to proceed, and if you run out of TP, you don't have an item, you can't backtrack to go heal, then you're just trying to stomp and whack and use your basic attacks to clear these enemies that have way too much HP. This is a problem that occurs in Chapter 1, if you play on hard mode. I can't tell you for sure whether it happens on normal or not, because I didn't play on normal. And then you pair that with the fact that the first dungeon is so drab. You're inside a cave and everything is washed over with this gray color, which makes sense because there's limited light in the cave. But just this combination of battles taking too long, there being way too many battles, and the cave just being visually unappealing. And then Chapter 2 had the same issue. Again, painted over in the grays, you're in another cave or cavern or something like that. Again, everything washed over in these shadows. Finally, there was a little bit of a relief. The environments were so much brighter. They were these beautiful golden fall colors, and there were some more activities to do in the town, more side quests to pick up, but I still had the same issues with the battling. And it wasn't until Chapter 5, in the second half of the game, that I'd done enough battles, I'd gotten enough experience, and I'd leveled up my characters enough to where I could do more and had more flexibility per battle. And spending TP on a couple of minor characters, minor enemies, didn't burn me for the rest of the dungeon. For those of you who never played a Paper Mario game, every time you level up, you have the choice to dump your points into HP, TP, which are, again, your mana, your currency for using abilities, or BP, badge points. And it's through this over-leveling, we'll call it, of badge points that affords you the most flexibility and opens up the most strategies to you in this game. So it was this, spending a lot of BP, coinciding with Chapter 5's arrival, that I finally started to feel like I had some robust characters, that I could heal TP or HP passively and I didn't have to use items all the time, that my attacks are finally doing so much more damage. And again, I'll just reiterate that a wealth of strategies opened up to me. So I chose to have V my primary damage dealer, but there were multiple ways that I could make her do that. I could buff her up with items, which is fine. You can cook and combine ingredients and get these stat buffing items, or you can even just buy them from the shop if you're swimming in money, which eventually you will be. Money is really not an issue in this game, not at least in the second half. Or you could do what I did. Equip a set of badges so that when V is on low HP, all of her stats are buffed and she can even take extra turns. Or, a lot of people, the most popular strategy it looks like, is poisoning your own character, and you have some other badges. When you equip them, you get buffed while being poisoned or under the influence of other status effects. So lots of different ways to play it. Some people even buff up Kabu, some people buff up Leaf. It's up to you. I just did what felt most natural to me. So Paper Mario, Bug Fables, each of them have their unique strengths. I still love Paper Mario much more, but Bug Fables is a good game in its own right. And it is these tailored strategies and the greater assortment and variety in the badges that makes this game stand out. So if you're someone who wanted a little more depth in the battle mechanics, then look towards Bug Fables. It'll take a little while to really get going. You've got to amass quite a bit of experience to finally be able to have more badge points, and that's when the game really opens up for you, but I do think it's worth it. As for the rest of the game and its components, I'll just go through some categories very quickly here. Music, I thought was fine. Some of the songs will stick with you, but there was nothing that really blew me away. The visuals are exactly what you see, paper style visuals, usually excellently colored, nice color palette used here in the game once more. The different bugs all have these unique characteristics that you can identify what type of bug they are, and the way that the bugs are integrated in these bug societies, which leads me to the exploration. This was a lot of fun, and again, with every subsequent chapter, there was so much more to explore. First of all, in the towns, you have tons of side quests that you could pick up, lots of characters you can talk to, and the characters have great dialogue. So interacting with them, learning about them, that's a lot of fun. In between the towns, the different paths or the routes that you can take where you encounter enemies and whatnot, there are a lot of hidden nooks and shrubs that you can cut down. There might be an item hiding behind something or a hidden pathway, and if you go on the pathway, you might come across a side boss, an optional boss. And again, if you're playing on hard, you defeat that optional boss, you go talk to a character in your main town, you get a badge as a reward. And I'm assuming on normal, once you kill that boss, the badge is going to appear in a shop. So some of these side quests and optional bosses have excellent rewards. I'm not going to say explicitly what they are, but if you've been paying attention to the footage, you may have noticed one. And I think that that is a good place to wrap up. I guess the story is good as well. Again, it ties into the lore books and the things that you can learn about the world building. The story was great, and the characters that you control, they will grow on you, and you will appreciate their interactions. You'll be charmed by them. Just to sum it all up for you guys, the battling mechanics and the balancing is off. So in the first half of the game, it's a little too much of a struggle. It's not that much fun having to constantly reload and refresh your TP to get through these minor enemies. But come the second half of the game, when you're much stronger and you have different options for how you can fight and take on these enemies, it suddenly opens up, becomes much more fun. And boss battles, rather than then relying on some luck and this battle of attrition, you actually get to employ your cleverly designed strategies and you get to whoop the bosses in no time. I do want to add this actually. So if you happen to look at a long play of this game or look at some strategies of people playing the game, you will see that they often get into a battle, use their first turns to scan the enemies. This is where you can see their HP and identify the weaknesses, and then they intentionally wipe. This, to me, is the most indicative of poor balancing, that so many of these battles cannot be won unless you scan an enemy and then you discard that wasted turn by wiping. So what happens is the scan persists when you retry the battle, but when you retry the battle, you don't have to burn a turn to use that action. I don't know what to say. I mean, I think that speaks for itself. If that's not indicative of poor gameplay design and poor balancing, then I don't know what is. But I will say, though, compared to this long play that I would occasionally take a look at and see how they were managing things, eventually I didn't need to worry about restarting or getting wiped. I was strong enough and capable enough where I could scan in any odd turn and then still win the battle. Now, there were still some battles. There was a super boss at the end of the game where it did cost me, and I had to get the battle retried, so I didn't have to burn that turn. Speaking of retrying battles, and this is the last new thing I'll say in this review, is RNG early on, especially in hard mode. a lot of your boss attempts are going to be dependent on what attacks the enemy bosses use on you. So you're out of luck if a boss uses his best attack 2 turns in a row. You're out of luck if you miss your block on an enemy when they use a certain attack and you get stunned. You get a status effect because of it. So there are going to be some battles where you retry them 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and you're hoping, in addition to you playing well, that they're just not going to use their strongest abilities all the time. Anyways, even though it feels to me like in this review I've spent more time talking about the negatives, I do just want to emphasize that the game became so much fun in the second half. I didn't want to put it down. I did all the side quests that I could at the end of the game, and it was just fun walking around the world, talking to characters again, seeing how they would interact with you as you would make different progress in the story. They would have updated dialogue. A lot of fun spending time in Bulgaria. A lot of fun spent with these characters, Kabu, V, and Leaf, and a lot of time experimenting with different strategies in the second half of the game. So that is Bug Fables. If I didn't explain anything that you're curious about, please just ask me in the comments. And if you're a fan of the game, or if the game turned you off, I would like to read about your experiences again in the comments section. So that's all. Thank you everybody for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.